joining today. We have two guests, Brittany and Joseph Musa. We're just gonna wait probably one more minute to start. So thank you everybody for joining. And then just stay here. We are also live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So please, if you're there on the social media platform, please feel free to join us from there. We're just gonna give it some more minutes and then I'll see you soon. All right, welcome, people who are joining right now. Thank you so much for joining today. We have today a very special guest. Her name is Brittany Story. She is the HR director of Person, and we obviously have our amazing VP of IT at CTI, Joe Moose.
Right.
So let's just start, guys. Let's just talk about the importance of HR and also recruitment in the workplace. So Moose, you wanna introduce our amazing guest?
Yes, yes. And so, again, as everyone knows, my name is Musa, and I had the honor of meeting Brittany maybe a couple weeks ago at a networking event. And, we kind of hit it off in regards to the fact that, first off, we're both from New Jersey, one of the best places on the planet. And then also the fact that we have a heart for people, and we're both serving people through different avenues. And hers just so happened to be through HR, where she served for 15 years and currently serving at Pearson. So I'll leave it up to you, Brittany.
Oh, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And it's great to be here and be part of this conversation. I'm really excited for what I know is going to be a great sharing of ideas and looking forward to connecting with people who are tuning in. Thank you so much for giving us your time and participating and taking time out of your day. For accessibility purposes, I want to share with everyone I am a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. I am sitting at a desk right now. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really excited to get to know people after this call and connect with you as well. For a background, I got into human resources, believe it or not because I dreamed of being an HR leader as a little girl.
What?
I know. Actually, I would be kind of concerned if a child was thinking, someday I can't wait to work in HR.
Into therapy, right in. No,
Exactly. Actually, I got into HR kind of by happenstance, like a lot of people do. They get into the space because there are mutually transferable skills that they can apply to transitioning into that career. So actually, I was working in financial services in 2007. And for some of our younger listeners right now, you may not have experienced this directly by being part of the job market at that point. Likely your parents or people that you know did. However, I was somebody who was laid off in the Great Recession in 2008 and needed to figure out something quickly. Although I was established in the New York and New Jersey tri-state area at that time, I was from Minneapolis. I was desperate to stay in New York. I kept thinking, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. And I am stubborn as heck. And I thought, I'm going to make it. I'll figure it out. I ended up finding a job and an interview for an HR benefits and compensation worker in New Jersey. And I was really clear in the initial interview saying, I haven't worked in HR before, but there are three principles that I live by.
yeah.
I work hard, I stay curious, and I live with integrity.
Right.
So if you take this opportunity to hire me, I can tell you I will work as hard as possible. I will learn quickly, and I will do it by keeping human in every aspect of human resources.
Right.
The rest was history.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany, for sharing your story. And let's just go with some questions that we already prepared for you guys. And then we already have some questions from the audience. So we're just going to go from those at the end of the
Yep.
podcast. So the first discussion we want to talk about is talent retention and recruitment alignment. So Brittany, what do you think are some strategies that Pearson implemented to retain top talent? And how does HR ensure these strategies align with overall business goals?
That is a wonderful question. So, this actually goes to the heart of why we operate at Pearson. So, at Pearson, we add value by adding life to a lifetime of learning. And we embrace that in everything that we do, both in the earners and the learners of the programs that we have implemented in the world, but also in the culture that we develop and we embrace within Pearson. So, we do this in a couple of ways. We are super intentional about hiring industry thought leaders to lead our centers of excellence and our different business units. We have our finger on the pulse of what not only is competitive in the market that we serve, but the future of our market as well. And we hire intentionally thought leaders who will help fill the gaps that we don't have on our team, that will take us to where we want to go for learners and for our shareholders, but also who are inspiring leaders that our employees can learn from and grow from. Another way that we do this is that we are incredibly intentional about making sure that learning is part of everything that we do.
Yeah.
In the division that I work in, I make sure that we embrace our learning and development opportunities at work. And our managers incorporate that into the coaching that they have with their team members. So we never just have conversations about performance. I mean, how awkward is it to go into a once a year performance check-in when you haven't heard feedback and you haven't had an honest conversation with your manager about where you want to go in the future? That's not meaningful. That's a check the box exercise. Let's just be really clear. Let's just be real about that. What I always encourage the managers that I support to do and the employees that are growing within our team to do is be an advocate for your own learning journey. Let's not only talk about where you are right now, but let's talk about where you want to go, because that makes conversations about learning and development opportunities and performance goals a lot easier and a lot more authentic. And I found by doing these two different things at Pearson, we are able to attract really great talent, because that is culture in a nutshell. People want to know about what the experience is that they are stepping into, not just what they're going to do, not what their compensation is going to be, but what am I going to gain as a part of this team? And I found that to be really valuable.
It's a really great point.
Thank you, Brittany. And now you, Joe, Moose. Well, I tend to tell you Moose, but it's fine. Joseph Moose. What about in the CTI, for example, our company or the company, what are actually those strategies that we are ensuring to maintain these for companies like Pearson, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when we're working with our clients, the big thing is to hear their heart, to hear what makes them tick, and also understanding where they're trying to go, because everyone's trying to get on a journey themselves, as well as, companies as a whole. So when you find people who are properly aligned with the company, now you don't have to work hard to try and overpay them to make sure that they stay, because they want to stay. They're already going in the right direction, and they're choosing this company as a vehicle to be able to get them there. And the company is choosing that person as, an advocate to be able to help them align, to propel them into that atmosphere as well. Another thing that we are very big on is personality tests, right? Because some people will just try and smash companies and people together, and that is just very unskilled and very inhumane in that regard. The person has feeling, and again, the company has goals of where they want to go. So when you're asking people what matters most to them, and how they want to be spoken to, or how they would like feedback, that sets an atmosphere for just a healthy environment, so that they can continue to grow properly together, because there will be uncomfortable conversations. But if I know how to properly approach you, then I can get the best out of you, rather than yelling at you in front of everyone and shutting you down for the rest of the month. And now they feel like they're in a toxic environment. That's a downward cycle. And one bad, apple is spoiling the whole bunch in that regard. So that's another thing. And then the last thing is really making sure that we're encouraging innovation. And I think that you had touched on that as well, Brittany, just in regards to if the company's bringing you on, they're bringing you on because they think you're brilliant, And so I know that as we're doing our weekly check-ins with our candidates, which I know a lot of companies don't do, this is where a lot of the candidates have, been transparent with us and said, hey, I love the fact that they've asked me my opinion, and they're actually implementing it. Like, I'm not just a number here, even though it's a larger company. And so we always champion companies like that, and it leads to great results in the future.
That's totally true. And now let's just try to move on to another thing that is super important also for recruitment and HR is
Yeah.
strategies of getting hired. Brittany, based on your experience, what are some things people can do to drastically improve their chances of getting hired? And Moose, obviously, please share some strategies as well from the recruitment side because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure both of them might align. But Brittany, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's a really great question and so relevant in any economy, but especially right now. I'm hearing from a lot of people in the market that it's been really challenging when there are literally thousands of other candidates that are applying for the same role
Yeah.
within 24 to 48 hours of the role being posted. I always recommend to live by a very simple philosophy with this: quality versus quantity. So, what I mean by that is it's going to be less than fruitful for you to spend hours each week when you're job hunting, sending off hundreds of easy apply applications to posts. That's not going to get you noticed, or very rarely is going to get you noticed. More than likely, what is going to get you noticed is by building authentic relationships that you have within the industry. So it's always easier to look for a job and start building those relationships when you're already gainfully employed. We know that there are circumstances, though, where that's not always the case. But I always recommend build authentic connections in your community. Look for networking groups like the one where I met Musa.
Right, there we go.
Hey, build a community in different ways. Now, I also want to recognize that this can also come from a place of privilege. I'm a single mom. Years ago, it would have been impossible for me when my daughter was younger to drop everything and go to networking events at night or weekends or take time away to be able to do that. You can use LinkedIn completely for free. Go on LinkedIn, look at thought leaders, look for the hashtags that inspire you, join conversations, start building connections with people.
Yep.
You can also do that in non-traditional ways as well. One of the things that's been the greatest tool for me was actually years ago when I was struggling to get ahead in my career. I did some research. I was going to night classes at that time, and I found that a convention I really wanted to go to had the opportunity to attend for free as a student volunteer. So I thought, what the heck? I'm 27 years old. I'm a non traditional student at this point, which, by the way, 27 is still very young.
It is. It is. Can we just solidify that right now? Absolutely.
So I attended and I couldn't believe it. I was the only person in a room of all of these volunteers who wanted to give all of my time to helping run the convention. Guess what? That was the secret weapon. That was the catalyst. I built so many connections from that convention and made so many relationships. And I found people who saw a shine in me that I couldn't recognize myself yet. Look for those opportunities. Find people who are willing and see the value that you bring to the world because they'll make introductions, and ask for their advice because they'll be able to help you and build connections when you're looking for a new role.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. And so even to what you mentioned is just being able to go to some of those networking events. I even told my, older brother is that, he was having problems finding a role because he kept on, exactly like you mentioned, sending his resume off to, everyone. And everyone thinks that that's a magic silver bullet. But the reality of that is that there's so many that even managers can get overwhelmed. Keep in mind, that's not their main job. They've got a full project to take care of. They're just trying to find an additional person to come on their team as well. And I said to my brother, hey, listen, your personality is, your strong point. Make sure you're showing your personality. Get in front of people. And so he literally went to the first one. He met somebody who was at the meetup from Amazon. A couple of weeks later, he had an interview. He worked for Amazon for a good 3 years, and had the time of his life. But again, it comes from getting out of your comfort zone sometimes. And I understand everyone's not an extrovert, but again, just being intentional. The fact that, hey, when I get in here, believe it or not, I'm really not an extrovert, right? But I'm intentional that when I get out there, hey, when I get in here, I'm gonna be the most friendly person. I'm shaking and kissing hands like I'm the mayor. That's what I got to do at this moment. So that's one thing. Another thing is also presentation does matter, and I want to say that in the most proper way. But even the profile pictures that I'm seeing with some people on their LinkedIn, tend to yourself in regards to, let's not have any pictures of you drinking. This is not Facebook, right? This is a professional setting. And so you got to think, when companies are coming to me to hire people on LinkedIn, all I have to judge from to a certain degree is, your background, but then also how you're choosing to present yourself. I've got 13 years in, so if you're showing me this on your profile picture, is this the person that I want to put my name on and present in front of this client that I'm trying to build a proper relationship with? That's really huge. Also, just even having a picture. Sometimes we're having silhouettes, and in a world where there's fake AI and certain things like that, that could be very hard because for recruiters, they only have a certain amount of, let's say, messages they can send out, and if they send it out and it's not a real person, they've now lost that opportunity. So that's something just to keep in mind to make it as easy as possible for the people that are looking for real people, so that they can select you and then be able to present you with opportunity. And if it's not a good opportunity, fully understand, but don't disqualify yourself before you even have the opportunity to be put in the ring.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you, Moose. You
Of
are
course.
totally right, and this is so important, to understand how these things are changing. And not talking about that, let's just talk also about the evolving role of HR in recruitment. So, Brittany, from your HR perspective, how do you see the role of HR evolving in the context of remote and hybrid work models? Because that's definitely what we are seeing nowadays. And Moose, how does this evolution in HR practices also impact the recruitment strategies? And businesses grow from your viewpoint of sales, because definitely it's changing the way that we are working, the expectations of the employees, etc. So,
Yeah,
Brittany, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to preface this by saying that the pandemic was challenging for everybody.
for sure.
There was so much unimaginable loss and tragedy that happened during that. One piece of silver lining that came out of it is it challenged employers and leaders to think differently about how we look for talent and how we support talent. So, from an HR perspective, I not only saw a willingness during that time to create opportunities for people to work remote, because
Mhm.
sometimes we had no choice at that point, but from a DE and I perspective, and then also from a unique life experience perspective, employers were able to attract and retain employees who otherwise would not be able to go to a traditional office setting. So when we're thinking about the ways that we attract the best talent and how we create a world in which the best talent can thrive, but they need a little support, being able to create an environment where there are opportunities, where it's celebrated and accommodated for people who aren't able to commute into an office environment, or perhaps they are taking care of ill parents or a partner or their children or whatever it may be. There has been a huge increase in the awareness of the needs for that, but also the embrace of that. Now, one thing I want to preface though is that sometimes a misconception that I hear in the industry is that employers only are accommodating to remote work because it's a cost savings to them. In a great culture, it should never be a cost savings, it should be cost neutral, because you still need to have culture. You
Right.
still need to have a way for people to connect with each other. So,
Yeah.
whether that I've seen in tech companies like the one that I came from, Credly by Pearson, we really focused on online ways to connect with each other and bringing team members together. Even if we had a remote work environment where people were all over the country or all over the world, now at Pearson, we still invest in ways to bring people together in meaningful ways, to build authentic relationships with each other, and to be able to celebrate a thriving work environment. But that's something that I wish that would be talked about a bit more. But I think that this has been a game changer, and I hope that progressive employers can lead the way and more employers can see the benefit of this rather than being fearful of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you left off on a really great point. Being cheering it on rather than being fearful of it, right? Because it's something that we did have to embrace. We really didn't have an option at that time. And so as things seem to be falling, apart, I really loved seeing the way that companies and people were coming together, right? And us figuring this out together so that we can properly move forward. And I love being able to see that certain companies that I had been talking to for years about flexibility finally became a bit more flexible, which allowed us to reach out to more people who had the skills. They just didn't live within a 5 mile radius, of them. And that opened up doors for them for more opportunities. And then also, it gave people in themselves who wanted that flexibility to be able to work from home the opportunity to now prove themselves to have the accountability, and then that's where those references came in so huge, because again, like we always talk about, you're only as good as your last deal or your last company, or your last reference in regards to what you've done. So people are on their crossing their T's and dotting their I's to make sure that they left a good mark on their last company, because that's their calling card for their next one in that regard. So that was also good. And then, I think it opened up a door for more conversation around mental health as well. And so for a lot of people who obviously watch me, we have Mental Health Mondays, because that's a real thing, just in regards to the fact that people who have never been in situations where they had to work by themselves in their homes and that they didn't have any real human contact for months on end. And so just the fact that they had established systems in place to check on people, make sure that they were good, because rather than, hey, you're not hitting your numbers, like, hey, why are you not hitting your numbers? Like, is everything okay with you? And just having a more human aspect to that. And so that's why, Brittany, I love how, you mentioned that you put the human back in HR, and that's so huge to me.
And now that you mention also, Moose, the idea of, mental health is also not only responsibility of HR, but it should be from all departments in the organization, right?
For sure.
So let's just talk about that, the collaboration between HR and other departments. So Brittany, in your view, how can HR and other departments, can work together more effectively to attract and retain top talent? And maybe like what Musa was saying too, to address this type of issues that are something that are happening, very often, and sometimes we just ignore them. And Moose, obviously, from your perspective, how does this collaboration definitely influence the success of recruitment processes and efforts?
Yeah.
Brittany?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I've worked for a lot of different companies over my span of 15 years in HR, and I know I will work for a lot of different companies in the future as well. One thing I've learned really carefully, and through some hiccups along the way, is that it's always telling to me in any organization how the role of HR is viewed and where it sits within the organization
Yeah.
and how it supports the rest of the team. So I will say transparently, for any future company that I ever work for, I will only work in roles where HR is a valued pillar, a strategic catalyst in the organization. We don't report into finance. We don't report into operations. We don't report into legal. We are a strategic pillar that is equal and unlocks opportunity within the business. I've been very, very fortunate over the past almost 5 years at Credly by Pearson, and now part of the broader Pearson community, to be part of an HR community that commands weight within an organization. We're part of every conversation.
Amazing.
I work really closely with my peers, specifically in sales and marketing and customer success. And in any role that I go into, I go back to that principle of staying curious.
Yeah.
I can only do my job well if I fully understand the business and how it runs operationally, what we're trying to achieve in the world, what the barriers to entry are, where there are opportunities and strengths and weaknesses. I always say, I view the best HR partners as the ones who are highly operational, highly strategic, but happen to specialize in HR. And I think that that's something that we need to see more of an embrace from in other companies and in the industry in general. And I want to challenge my HR community. Learn. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Learn as much about the business as possible, because that's going to build the most authentic relationships with your leaders across the division, and you'll be able to truly partner together to be able to achieve mutual goals.
Absolutely. And that's a really great point. And so even as we mentioned, Maria, in regards to the mental health aspect of things and how HR can obviously partner with the rest of the company, like you mentioned, the fact that HR is a pillar, right? It's not just something off in a back corner or back room, but the fact that, really the other departments should rally around it, because you are serving all of them, as well as obviously working with them simultaneously for synergy. But a big thing for me is, I'm speaking with a lot of candidates, is that even above money, they want a good culture. They want a good environment, right? Like, the constant word that you'll hear over and over from people is like, I don't want to be in a toxic environment, But
Yeah.
what fosters a toxic environment? The fact that it's work, 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 no play, or the fact that people, and I've heard about, managers who will make their employees feel very guilty if they ever want to take time off. It's like, let us remember that people are lending their life to us, and I'm very well aware of that in regards to this is their life. They're choosing to give us 8 hours of their day. I don't own 24 hours of their life or on their weekends. And if they want to take time for their family who they're working hard to support, why would we want to make them feel bad when they're trying to take time to recharge so they can come back to us better in that regard? And so that is what I've seen over and over with other companies where they've unfortunately lost great employees because they just didn't know how to treat them properly. And so HR could be pushing for one agenda of equality in that regard and making sure that everyone feels respected, but there could be certain departments that are not aligned with HR in that manner, and that's where again there's a lot of clashing, because then people never feel steady. I know that anywhere I go within my company, everyone is believing and pushing the same thought process that, hey, you need to take time off. Okay, fully understand it. What do you need us to take care of while you're gone? That's a completely different feeling rather than, wow, well, you didn't hit your numbers last week. So now you're stressed out that entire time. And you're like, do I even want to come back there? So that's one way that I think, again, HR can obviously work with, management as well as the rest of the leadership, just to make the best environments so that the candidates can give their best as well.
I agree with you guys, and we have a question from the audience that I think it'll be worth it to talk about, Brittany, and
Yeah.
I think this could be more for you.
Absolutely.
Natalia is asking, what HR can use as a strategy aside from happy hours, some calls, or something remote, to connect the different teams in the company while maintaining the flexibility of work remotely? Have you ever encountered like another type of strategies? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fabulous question. I'm going to say something that needs to be said, and it may feel a little uncomfortable for a lot of people on this call because I've been there too, and I've learned the hard way in a lot of situations. Being in HR, you see people going through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in their lives. And some of the lowest of lows that I've seen have been when I'm helping employees check into rehabilitation centers when they are struggling with addiction issues. I want to say really clearly, happy hours can have a place in a working environment, but don't make that your culture building norm. There are so many people that are part of the recovery community, and it is immediately isolating for them if that is the only way that you're building culture and connecting with the team. We experienced a lot of this during the pandemic, and we experienced a lot of this at Pearson in general. I look after a global team under my remit. So some of the things, and we're not perfect. I'm constantly looking for new opportunities, but we did a lot of creative things during the pandemic that I want to continue to carry into every role that I'm in. We hosted talent shows. We said, okay,
That's so cool.
yeah, you're a worker, and we know you're amazing at sales or customer success or marketing or whatever, but we want to understand you and the talents you have outside of work, and we want to celebrate them. So we literally had a talent show where people showed their photography and their drawings, and we have all sorts of talented musicians within our group. I actually ended up going
My guitar.
I went back to my earlier days of being a barista and a mixologist, and I said, you know what? Hey, going back on the recovery theme to be inclusive for everyone, I'm going to create a custom mocktail and do a demonstration for everybody. And it was a really fun way to connect with people in a way that helped learn about other aspects of work. I'm also a really big fan of just creating an environment where people can get to know each other, where they can be matched up with other colleagues for coffee chats, or they can get to know each other. Slack can be a really great tool if your company embraces that. At Credly by Pearson, what we did is we focused on things like we had a Kids of Credly channel, we had a Pets of Credly channel, and then we realized, hey, not everyone has kids or pets. Let's do a Plants of Credly channel. Let's do a cooking channel for everybody who's learning how to make sourdough bread and things like that. And we've had so many different natural conversations and relationships that have been built since then. But don't be afraid to look for more opportunities. And if you have more questions and want to talk to me more about this, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. I'd love to continue the conversation.
That's awesome. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, I
That
will
really
share
is.
definitely your, LinkedIn because people are asking for it. Okay, and now to just kind of like recap of the discussion and then move forward to the questions that we have. And now that you have the chance, Brittany, is there any misconceptions that people have about HR that you would like to clear on air before we go, with the questions on the
It's like,
podcast?
where do I start? Let me tell
Yeah,
you.
I think we may need a follow-up call for this in the future.
Jerry.
Oh gosh. All right. I'm going to preface by saying that I acknowledge that a lot of people have had less than glowing interactions with HR in their career. And perhaps you work for a company where you don't have a great relationship with HR, or you've had a circumstance in the past that has made you very concerned. It really hurts my heart when I hear the immediate reaction from people about the role of HR, that we are only there to protect the company. And there certainly are HR departments and individuals who operate under that mindset. One thing I want to clear up is that the role of HR is constantly evolving. We're not your mom and dad's personnel department from several years ago. We also aren't just there to help you get your paycheck on time or to process your benefits. Although, if you don't have either of those taken care of, you can't focus on anything else. Let's keep the human back in human resources. You can't focus on anything else if those basic needs are not met. Ideally, HR should be there to help attract, develop, and support talent in the best ways possible, to help individuals and the company achieve their goals, and to consistently provide that baseline of making sure that people have what they need, the company has what they need. And I always say to every person coming into whatever company that I work for, hey, real talk, first day orientation, you're probably not going to retire from this company. So let's make this the best experience you can have while you work here. Let's be
That's so
honest from the
powerful.
beginning. Yeah, be
That's so
honest.
powerful. I've never heard anyone say that.
Well, I have to say, my former CEO from Credly, Jonathan Finkelstein. Hey, Jonathan. He was a bit horrified when he heard me say that the first time in a group orientation that I led, but I think it grew on him later on.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really important to make sure that we give people what we need. We give them the right tools and the basics they need to do their job effectively. We give them the right framework, the right guidance, and the right performance coaching to be able to help achieve their goals. And then eventually, when it comes to the point where someone maybe leaves the organization, ideally we've been having a conversation with them about where their career goals are going and what we can help them do. And if it's no longer the right opportunity, then you know what? Bless you. It was great to build what we built together, and
Yeah.
we are still going to be cheering for you on the sidelines. And
That,
that's
that
the way we live.
is so powerful, right? Just in regards to the maturity of being able to say, hey, listen, I understand this might not be forever, right?
Yeah.
Never heard that. And then even the last part is like, if we do decide to part ways, that we're still cheering for you. Not like I've seen people turn instant enemies after years of making, and I'm like, how sad is that? Like, why do I have to lose, a role and lose friends at the same time? Or was any of that real then at that point? So again, just much respect to you for the way that you choose to approach that. I think that's beautiful.
Thank you. I just
Yes.
want to really quickly, I just want to say I'm a big believer that it says so much more about a company's culture and identity, about the way that they treat people on the way out versus the way that you treat them during the recruitment process.
Yeah.
So it's an end-to-end employee life cycle process that I care passionately about.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brittany. And yeah, thank you for doing what you do because it's not easy. So thank you so much. Let's go with the questions that we have previously, okay? Because we talk about you having you here. So Emily is asking you, Brittany, as an HR manager in a tech company, we're constantly facing the challenge of retaining top developers who are highly sought after. What specific initiatives or programs you found most effective in keeping high demand talent engaged and loyal to the company?
Oh, I love this question. I have such a special soft spot in my heart for developers and product leaders. Let's just focus primarily on developers because there's been a shift in the market, and they have been the secret weapon for a lot of fast growing tech companies. And they certainly have aided in the success that we've had in the division that I support in workforce skills at Pearson. Um, I found a couple principles to be true. Um, like everyone, but in particular for developers, they need clarity on what the product roadmap is and where we're going. They need people to get out of their way to let them do their job effectively. And they also need a strong sense of community and culture within their team. They need to enjoy the people that they are working with. So that's why, especially in a remote environment, we're creating the right opportunities for them to share ideas, make connections, build friendships, and things like that. A lot of times for the tech community, things like town halls, while they are important, too many of those meetings can start to feel like it's getting in the way of being productive as well. So it's a healthy balance. I would say the biggest thing is listen to your community, have authentic conversations, hear from them what it is that would bring delight to them to retain them in the community. And then lastly, the other thing I want to challenge all employers to do is that just like how I kind of transitioned into HR in a non traditional way, a lot of people become developers through non traditional pathways as well. They make a career pivot from another industry because they've seen something that they wanted to make changes with, and they've moonlighted while taking coding classes or moonlighting as developers, and then they transition into that career. When you're designing your learning and development program at your organization, there is a tendency only to offer reimbursement for college accredited courses or through very specific types of courses. That is not the way that the best and most innovative developers learn. They learn through boot camps, they learn through communities of peers, they learn through sometimes programs that are teaching them new software languages and through conferences that you can't get in a traditional college setting. So be inclusive, be mindful, be tapped into the industry, and listen to your developers on how they're learning and how you can add value by creating less blockers for them to be able to gain those skills.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany. We have another question in the chat, and then I have one final question to you, Moose. So, actually, the chat is asking Brittany, many people feel that the HR team is more at the company side than the employee side. What can we do to maintain balance?
That's a really great question. And that goes back to a little bit about what I shared before. Of course, HR does have a lot of responsibility with all sorts of compliance aspects and making sure that people have the tools that they need, the support that they need, etc. I think that it's really important for HR leaders who are seeing opportunities for improvements in our fields to speak up, to be vocal. Join communities of peers and ask other leaders on how they are balancing all of these things and how they're advocating for their role. I'm an active part of the community, Disrupt HR. I highly encourage anyone in the HR community to be involved in that as well. And it's also up to us to continue to advocate for the importance of having a specific seat at the table and to advocate for employees just as much. I want to be really clear though. Yes, we are not only there to protect the company, but we are also not there to be best friends to employees. We maintain a very specific balance within an organization. We are there to help you, to help the company moving forward. But I also really want to encourage employees take advantage of other resources that may help you in your career as well. A lot of companies have really good EAP programs. There may be ERGs that you can participate in as well, but you need to make sure that you are going through the appropriate avenues to get the support that you need as well, to be able to balance some of the other things that may be going on in your personal life. And hey, everybody's has had challenges and setbacks in their life. HR is there definitely to help and advise you, but please make sure that you are an advocate for your needs in your life, because HR will be there to provide resources and support, but ultimately you have to be an own advocate for your own mental health, what is going on in your life,
Yeah,
and for your well-being and balance within your work-life
Right.
balance and your life in general.
so
Thank you
true.
so much, Brittany. Yeah, that's totally true. I just have one more question for you guys so we can wrap it up before this amazing podcast. And this is from Kevin. So his question is to you and to Moose. Brittany and Moose, as companies increasingly focus on building diverse and inclusive teams, what are the key challenges you both face in achieving this from the HR perspective and the recruitment perspective?
That's a great question. And it's a nuanced and complicated one. And the answer is there's no silver bullet for all of this, and there's no one size fits all answer to this. This is something that I'm glad that companies have more awareness of, but I want to be really clear. DE&I efforts should always be authentic and be adding value long term. It's a game of chess, not checkers, and it's not a tick the box exercise.
Right there.
So, yeah. So, when I'm thinking about how to attract and retain and develop the best talent and offer opportunities to people in minority groups, it starts at the bottom. Okay. So, how are we supporting development of entry level employees and mid career employees so that later on they have the opportunity to take on more progressive roles? Are we being thoughtful also as an organization and in our management training about some of the unconscious biases that we have? Now, I recognize I have a tremendous amount of privilege and a lot of blind spots as a white woman from Minnesota. I think it's really important for employees and HR leaders and managers to recognize your blind spots. Know that you are always needing to be learning, listen more than you speak,
Yeah.
and try to find opportunities to promote and to celebrate talent, especially from the bottom, and create opportunities for reward and recognition, especially for people who otherwise may not traditionally have those opportunities. So call it out, recognize it, remove the barriers to entry, and celebrate and learn quickly when you know that you've made a mistake, but be adaptable and continue to learn.
Awesome. Moose, do you want to give your point of view?
Yeah, I think you really nailed that on the head. And I think that's another reason why we also connected in regards to not only were we from Jersey, but I also lived in Minneapolis as well, in that freezing sector. But something that you brought up that was very important is that you don't want to be dealing with companies that are just trying to check off a box, right? And for myself, as you know, African American man, I have sat in interviews where you could tell, and it's hard to verbalize this, right? But just like you could tell, like you don't really like me. You like what possible grants you could get off of the fact that you can now say, "Oh, we got a black guy. We're diverse." And it's like, no, like if my goals and my beliefs and my skills are not lining up with yours, then that's fine. You know what I mean? I know that I'm skilled and I know what I believe and I know, the goals that I have. And I don't just want to be here just because, again, to check off a box for you, because I know there's a company that will truly value me for all that I encompass. This is just a small piece of who I am. And that's not even who I am. It's what I have on me. But the things that I've developed within me is who I am. And that's what I want to be acknowledged for in that regard. And so, just like again, the candidates that are out there, make sure that you are also part of a company that aligns with your skills and your beliefs in your goals, and not taking the short route of, oh well, they just need a colored person here, or they just need a lady to check this box so that they don't look like they're a sexist company. It's like, no, like value yourself and hold off until there's a company that will value you. And I'm grateful to be in a company here where I am truly valued and they appreciate where I do come from and the different ways that I choose to look at things as well. And that's acknowledged and that's honored. And that's why I've been able to flourish here as well.
Guys, thank you so, so much for this amazing podcast and for your
Yeah.
time, Brittany. Thank you so much for being our guest today, and obviously to you,
Thank you,
Musa.
Brittany.
So much.
You're the hero.
Thank you, Maria
Yep.
and Musa. It's been so lovely to have this conversation. Let's keep this conversation going. I
Always,
encourage
always.
anyone to
Yes,
join the conversation
definitely.
with us, and maybe we have the opportunity to do it again in the future.
Yes, we will. We'll
Absolutely.
be more than happy to have you, and keep talking about the topics you guys wanted to talk. But thank you so, so much for joining us. And thank you everybody who joined in for your questions.
Thank you,
I have
everyone.
shared LinkedIn, Brittany's LinkedIn, so you can follow her, DM her if you need her, and also Moose. So thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned for the next podcast. And then bye bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.